Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. So a couple of weeks ago on Instagram I did one of those like ask me a question sticker things, and somebody asked me like what the basics are of starting a hair care routine, like hair care routine 101. And I thought that was such an interesting question, and I thought it would be fun to do a video on it because I know a lot of you who have found my channel recently may just be starting your hair journeys and may be a little bit confused about what is really necessary to think about when trying to figure out your own hair care routine. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video and find it helpful. If you do, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I share a lot of tips over there as well, so that will be linked in the description box too. The first thing I think is super important when trying to figure out your hair care routine is to understand your hair type fully. So that not only means figuring out where you fall on like the curly to straight spectrum, but also understanding your hair porosity. Really understanding and getting to know your hair type will help you to understand your hair's needs and make it a lot easier to narrow down products that you should be using, kind of what your routine should look like. And then of course when you're doing research on your hair type, you'll know exactly what to look for, and it won't be this like broad spectrum of hair care anymore. It could be specifically like curly high porosity hair or curly low porosity hair, or whatever the case may be. I talked about hair porosity more in detail in my capillary schedule video, so I'll have that linked up in the cards for you guys. But there are three types of porosities, and there's high porosity, medium porosity, and low porosity. The porosity of your hair basically just refers to your hair's ability to absorb moisture. So for example, if your hair is low porosity, that means that your hair's cuticle lies very flat and shut, so your hair will have more of a difficult time absorbing hydration and moisture. That means that when you do hydrating treatments, for example, you may need to incorporate some heat or do some different things in order to help your hair to absorb that hydration more easily. However, once your hair has actually absorbed the hydration, it can hold on to it a little bit easier than high porosity hair, for example. But if you're not able to hydrate your low porosity hair properly, you will experience a lot of dry hair, and it can almost mimic high porosity hair. So that's kind of what happened with me. When I first started my journey, I didn't know that I had low porosity hair. So I wasn't taking care of it correctly, and my hair ended up being really dry, brittle, frizzy, all of the things that kind of made me think that it was high porosity instead. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, high porosity hair, the cuticle is more open, so it can absorb moisture really easily, but it also loses moisture really easily. So while it might be easy to hydrate your hair and do treatments on it, it loses that hydration really quickly, and so sealing the hair and helping to seal the cuticle is really important. Then of course there's medium porosity, which sits right in the middle, and this is typically the easiest to take care of. The hair cuticle is lying flat enough that it can hold on to moisture, but also open enough that it can absorb moisture more easily. It is important to keep in mind that your hair porosity is natural and genetic. So for example, like if I had high porosity hair, I couldn't just do things to it to make it low porosity, and there's nothing inherently wrong with any of these porosity types. It really just depends on your hair type. However, if you have low porosity or medium porosity hair and you over process your hair, damage it, bleach it, use a lot of heat on it, and don't take care of it, you can end up with higher porosity hair because it's damaged. So that is something to keep in mind if you do like process your hair in any way. So again, I went into more detail in my capillary schedule video, and I will also have some really helpful posts on hair porosity in my description box from Instagram, and some blog posts. So I would really encourage you guys to check those out if you're confused. I know it can be kind of like a confusing subject. The next thing you should take into consideration is how frequently you like to wash your hair and how frequently you're comfortable with washing your hair. Personally, I wash my hair twice a week. When I first started my hair journey, I was washing my hair every day, sometimes even twice a day, which is like, I don't know what I was thinking. And then I slowly went to every other day, then every 3 days, and so on and so forth. The longest I used to go between washes was a whole week. Now I just find that twice a week works best for me because I do work out and my hair is low porosity, so it does tend to start looking greasy after a few days. This part is totally up to your preference and what you feel comfortable with. I would really discourage anyone from washing every single day. I understand that a lot of you guys might be working in professions that require you to wash your hair every day, and so that's totally fine. But I would encourage you to look for really gentle shampoos and conditioners if that's the case, and make sure that you are doing masks and treatments once a week to restore some moisture back into your hair. The problem with washing your hair too frequently is that washing will strip the natural oils that your scalp produces that is really beneficial and essential to healthy hair growth and a healthy scalp, especially if you are using a harsh shampoo with like harsh ingredients, or if you're using a very clarifying shampoo. It can really just overstrip the hair and lead to overproduction of oil, dandruff, and even hair loss in some cases. So if you don't need to wash your hair every day, I would really encourage you to try washing every other day or every 3 days, just to give your hair some time to like absorb the natural oils that your scalp produces. And over time it does get easier to push the time between washes because your scalp will start to regulate its oil production when it's not constantly being stripped. That being said, not everyone is going to have an easy time going from washing every day to only washing once a week. Again, depending on your hair type and what your personal hair needs are, that might not be ideal for you. So don't force yourself to like bend to a specific routine that you've seen online or seen like a hair influencer following if it's not working for you, because your hair needs are personal and individual. When I started my hair journey, I wish I knew more about silicones and sulfates and other different ingredients that are in my hair products. I personally choose to avoid silicones and sulfates because they didn't make my hair feel that great before, and since I've stopped using them, my hair has felt a lot better and I've noticed a lot of improvements in my hair that I didn't notice before. I know a lot of people prefer to use silicones and sulfates, and again, this is something that really is based on preference. So I really encourage you to do your own research and come up with your own conclusion based on your own hair type and what feels best for you. However, if you are someone who has been working on their hair journey for a long time and you feel like you're doing everything right but you're still not getting the results you want, I'd encourage you to try going off silicones and sulfates to see how you feel, or even going to like gentler sulfates and like water soluble silicones instead. The problem with sulfates, of course, I'm sure most of you know by now, is that they can be really drying to the hair and scalp, and honestly I don't really think you need such harsh cleansing agents unless you're using a lot of product on your hair. But even then, there are tons of sulfate free options that are great clarifying shampoos or exfoliating shampoos that you can use that will help to clear buildup. And the problem with silicone is that while they seal your hair temporarily and make your hair look super shiny, they can really help to hide the look of split ends. And the problem is that over time, especially if you're not using a water soluble silicone, they will build up on the hair and they can cause a lot of dryness and damage over time. So again, do your own research. Obviously use what products work best for you. If you can learn about which ingredients you prefer to use in your products and which ingredients work well for your hair, it can really narrow down the choices you have when you are looking for new products to try out, and it can help you save a lot of money in the long run because you're not trying to experiment with like every single product on the shelf, because you know exactly which ingredients you like to use and which ingredients you choose to avoid. So the next thing you should consider is hair masks, how often you like to do them, what kinds of masks you like to do, and if you like to follow some sort of schedule like the capillary schedule, for example. So this really is closely knit with the figuring out how often to wash your hair portion. I wash my hair twice a week, like I mentioned before, and I like to do masks on both of my wash days if possible. For many of you, you may wash your hair every other day and prefer to do a mask once a week. You may prefer to do a mask every other week. It really depends on you and your hair type again, and like your routine. This again is really where your hair porosity comes into play because it can tell you a lot about what your hair might be missing. For example, with my hair, as it's low medium porosity, I'm typically losing out on some hydration. So when I do hair masks, I usually do hydration masks more frequently, and I find it easier for me to use the capillary schedule. It just makes the whole thing a lot easier because I don't have to think about it. It's just a schedule that's already made for me and I can just follow it each week. If you don't know what the capillary schedule is, I've already done 2 videos on it on my channel, so I will have those linked up in the cards for you, because if I get into it, this video will be super long. But it's basically just a schedule that allows you to plan out when you're going to be doing hair masks and which type of hair mask you're going to be doing based on your hair type, based on your hair goals, whether or not you use heat, all of those things. It's really personalized, and I found it to be really easy for me, and it works really well for my hair, so I just like to follow that. The last part of figuring out your hair routine obviously is some trial and error. Of course, if you've just gotten into hair care and you don't know much about what you prefer on your hair yet, it's going to take some time to kind of figure that out. One thing I will say though to be careful with is trying to mimic the same routine that your favorite Instagrammer or YouTuber or whoever is using for their hair. While their routines can be a really good guide for your hair routine based on their hair type, if they have a similar hair type to you, always keep in mind that everyone's hair is super different even if you have the same hair type as somebody else. So maybe you can start off looking at somebody else's routine as like a guide and just kind of like a blueprint of some things that you might consider including in your routine. But when you're trying your routine out, if you find that it's not working for you, don't be scared to switch it around and try to find something else that works better. And then once you've kind of gotten your basic hair routine down, like how often you like to wash and when you like to do masks, this is when you can start being more experimental with things like hair rinses, scalp treatments, which leave-in products and styling products work best for you. I'm a big believer in leave-in conditioner, but when I started my hair journey, I wasn't using anything after the shower and I felt like my hair was thriving anyways. So it's also possible that your routine will change over time as you bring your hair back into health or as you change your hair goals, so that's totally okay too. And as always, try to love your hair at every stage of your journey. Everybody's hair is beautiful regardless of the hair type and texture. I know it can be difficult to love your own natural hair when you want to style it and heat style it and you see other people with a hair type that you might want, and I think that's totally normal. I think everyone experiences that at some point. I still experience that even now. I'll see somebody's hair and be like, oh my god, I wish my hair looked like that. But it's important to remember that your hair is a part of you, and I said this in my last video as well, but I really feel like hair care is such a big part of self-care for me, and it makes me feel good about myself and it helps me to relax. So if you try to look at it in that way instead of just trying to reach a certain goal, I think you'll enjoy your hair journey a lot more and it'll be a lot more fun to figure out your routine, if that makes sense. But I really hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope it kind of made things a little bit more clear and broke it down for you a little bit in terms of what you should be looking for when starting your hair journey. If you guys have any of your own tips or anything that's helped you, please leave it down in the comments because you might help somebody else without even realizing. I know I learned so much from you guys. Every time I upload a video, you guys leave me comments that teach me something, and so I really appreciate that. So thank you again so much for watching. Let me know what you guys would like to see next, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!